Listen, overtraining is a myth. You're actually probably overworked and undertrained. Overtraining happens in certain cases, okay? High endurance athletes, they can become overtrained. Excessive amounts of hypertrophy through weight training or resistance training, that can be overtrained. Massive amounts of training at a professional level without the right recovery, without the right nutrition, without the right protocols put in place, that can lead to overtraining. You can get injuries, your brain can start to shut down on you. But the large segment of the population are not overtraining. They're not even anywhere near overtraining. Overtraining is going to require things that aren't even taking place in a person's in your regimen right now. The fact is, you're probably overworked. You're probably overworked in terms of, you know, there's this expression like a workaholic, and then there's like this new one called parentalaholic or parentaholic. And that's when the calendar gets so filled that you're not really taking care of yourself anymore. The excitement and enthusiasm that you had as a kid, as a teenager, as a person in your 20s for physical training, athletics, sports, maybe some of you even at the professional level, that has been weighed down and overrun by everything else in life. And so you're in a state of being overworked until you become aware. Then you realize there's really no such thing as being overworked, because whenever you have a passion for something, that fuels the fire, and that is what allows a person to pull all-nighters or work all week long, do incredible amounts of work and tasks, and then be in tune. Whenever that starts to fade, or whenever a person is unaware that they're allowing they could be completely oblivious that stress is starting to stack, and that their threshold for stress has become lower and lower and lower and lower and lower from being sedentary and from not doing the other positive activities that they used to do. Okay, so you're probably overworked. You're probably not overtrained, not anywhere near close. You're probably undertrained, okay? And so all those specific things that I was mentioning, all those, like, people will call them negative things of life, you know, or just the busyness, or the things that they have to handle, that's creating physical issues, the stiffness, the tightness, the injuries, the losing of your edge. Like, where's your edge? You know, your athleticism or your former athleticism, you know, that is going to start to be weighed down if you don't have an awareness or an understanding of these principles that I'm talking about. And this is more so, these videos are more so about the principles of training, you know, the muscle ups, the handstands, the flips, all those things. That comes as a byproduct later, only on top of a foundation that actually works. And I could tell you all the sets and reps, you could lift all the weights that you want, you could do all the WODs that you want, but if you don't understand these two principles, it's going to amount to nothing, and you're just going to get worse and worse and worse. Okay, so that realization there, that awareness, and that allowing of the stress to fashion you into a samurai sword rather than just blunt you. is a shift. It's an internal one that has to be made, and it starts with what I mentioned, that awareness. And then you're undertrained. You're just not training enough, not anywhere near close. And yeah, you know, a 30, 40, 50, I call them sun lappers, but years of age or whatever, you can handle way more. 30 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day, 90 minutes a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. It's all good whenever that foundation, that mindset is right. And so there are two versions of you right now, okay? So number one, the prime state. This is what you probably felt like in your 20s. Maybe not, I don't know. Maybe we were a professional athlete involved in sports. That peak level of performance and athleticism, when you were training the most and you felt your best, that prime state, okay, that's version number 1. Now, a lot of folks are just operating in version number 2, which is mediocre mode. Now, how do you get there? How do you get to mediocre mode where you're just, folks are complaining about their age, the aches and pains, the body isn't responding like it used to? Those are all myths, and they are there as a result of being in mediocre mode. Number 1 is listening to the mediocre masses. So turn off the media, shift gears, stop nodding your head whenever people say those things, because those words have meanings, and those meanings have impacts on your life in a physical way. And that has to be emphasized. And so shifting from mediocre mode into your prime state. And you have to recall what that felt like to be in prime state. And here's how you do it, okay? Listen, your body is going to adapt whether you want it to or not. It's going to adapt to one of two things. It's going to adapt to mediocrity, or it's going to adapt to mastery. You're only going in two directions. Mediocrity just paves the path for fast decline, okay? Mastery paves the path for growth and longevity, athletically, mentally, everything. And so that focus on mastery, not just going to the gym and going through your workouts or scrounging through video series and trying to copy the best you can. That isn't how you learned your spoken language, whatever language you speak. I don't know what YouTube is translating this into right now. But you've mastered things in your life. At minimum, you've mastered how to speak. You've probably mastered your profession. You're probably a high-performance career individual that has gone through half a decade or more of advanced education to get a degree to work in the field that you're in, and now you're doing that professionally. And so you've mastered that to one degree or another. There's one specific element that makes that shift, and then it all grows from there. But mastery is a direct result of immersion. But here's the bad thing, though. Mediocrity is also the direct result of immersion. If you surround yourself with the mediocre, if you put yourself in an environment where you're seeing the mediocre, the mediocrity of people that don't care, that have apathy, they're dealing with things in their life. I'm not taking anything away from anybody. But everybody does have to make choices in their life, okay? That's all I'm saying here. And that you have a choice that you get to make, mediocrity or mastery. And mastery is a choice that you can make. And then comes the immersion into a new tribe. So proper training and a positive tribe. And that is what compounds, it has a compounding effect to your mastery. And it's very, very significant. But here's the deal. If you don't get out of mediocre mode, you're actually going to die early. Now, there's a number of reasons. But I will say this, that you can actually add years to your life with the kind of training that you do, or the kind of people that you surround yourself with. There are blue zones. I don't know if you know this, you probably do, but blue zones where people's lifespans are longer on average, living up to hundreds of years. There's a whole movement for longevity. I don't agree with a lot of the methods and practices that they do. A lot of it I differentiate between passive treatment and active treatment. And active treatment is just how you live your life, the actions that you take. Passive is the stuff that's done to you. So those are all these supplements and all these other procedures and all these things that people are doing, thinking that they're going to get to mastery and or longevity by what they put inside, which it doesn't work that way. It's what comes from the inside outwards that translates into longevity. And that's just facts. A person could take all the supplements that they want to take and do all the protocols that they want to do and have a pessimistic mindset and toxicity and immerse themselves in that, and it will amount to nothing. It'll be flushed down the toilet. Versus the actions that you take from a mind that is transformed on the inside, that is positive, and that is seeking true mastery, that leads to longevity. And there's even studies that show this. In terms of sports, there's one that I mentioned in another video, and you can go look these up. But there's two sports. They studied a whole bunch, and it was like thousands of athletes since their birthday. They were born in as early as the 1800s. So obviously they weren't interviewing people in the 1800s, but they had lived to that point, and then they were going back to studying the research materials as well as interviewing and documenting all these current athletes, and through that whole spectrum, that range of dates. And they found that gymnasts and pole vaulters lived like 8 to 9 years longer than any others. And there's a specific reason for that. And it's how our students train. It's high impact. It's high impact. It is anaerobic and aerobic, so it's mixed sport. It is skills-based, so there's a cognitive factor there. These things lead towards a different level of mastery than someone that is doing something redundant over and over and over and over and over and over again for decades on time. Mastery is a different ideology, okay? And so the common underlying factor between gymnastics, and I don't mean I don't know who it could have just been specifically the 6 or 5 element gymnastics. I take it to mean like anything that's acrobatic in nature, because the moves are all the same. So break dancers do flares and the same stuff that's done on pommel horse and on floor. Parkour people do vaults, and that's actually the one underlying factor between pole vaulting and gymnastics or acrobatics or parkour. Vaulting, which is high impact, extremely explosive, anaerobic to aerobic activity with a skills-based component. And that's what I've gathered from it. And it's adding 8 to 9 years of life to people. So I say kind of tongue-in-cheek that you'll die early, but I want to take that into consideration, that the mediocre, what the masses are doing, there's the least common denominator element in terms of thinking, and masses will always gravitate towards that least common denominator. I'll mention a movie. You might have seen this. If you haven't seen it, it's worth it. But the movie Idiocracy. And so, you know, you have your own opinions, and I'm not here to argue or to debate collective human progress. But there is that tendency, and you've probably seen it, okay, if we're being honest. And so getting out of the masses and moving towards mastery is something that is far more advantageous than I can really share in just this quick video. And so there's a lot of other videos where I go into depth on all kinds of different aspects of training and building people up to athletic longevity, especially high performance professionals and former athletes who are really feeling it. They're beat up from stress, and they're beat up from years of the physical stuff. Maybe they were a former athlete and a professional athlete, and the body's just taking a toll. And the high performance professionals that have had life just hammer them. And so that shifting gears there will be extremely advantageous, and I encourage you to watch the other videos on the channel where I go in depth on different elements and so on. And then otherwise, if you don't want to do another day, if you can't stand doing another day of what's mediocre, and you want to shift into mastery and start training for that, then you can apply for training, and that'd be awesome. And we could see how we might be in alignment for training and see what kind of progress we can make together. So I'll see you in the next video and in training soon.